My sister and I were getting ready to leave for lunch as my dad and his coworkers were waiting downstairs. When we went downstairs to greet everyone, one of the coworkers came up to us, got a close look at us, and said, "Wow, how is it that the eldest sister is much bigger while your younger daughter is much slimmer?" While all the adults started to laugh it off, and although it may have just been a hoax, I knew that both my sister and I were furious and unhappy. And as such, our relationships with friends, families, and how these significant others speak about their body and appearance influence our perception of our own body and appearance. At that moment ever since, I've been so much more aware of how I looked in the mirror, the camera, and around people. The horror of the thought of getting comments similar to that put me in a mindset to become much more aware of comments people would make on how I looked. But it never stopped there. And as I said earlier, it may not have been intentional, nor have people been conscious about the words they say. It didn't feel any better on being ridiculed on whether someone was skinnier or bigger. It started to weigh down on me mentally going into the holidays. I hated that I started making unhealthy habits where every time I would see any reflective surface, I would catch myself looking at my own reflection to make sure I didn't look bad, or constantly looking through social media and comparing myself to others during this pandemic, especially with online school going on. I started to establish the thought that if I just ate less, I could become skinnier, and because of this, it ultimately became a lifestyle. With that in mind, it gave me a new embodiment of guilt for being so self-aware of my body and how I was treating it. But regardless, I started to think that if I kept doing this, I would be satisfied at the end of the day. But overall, it didn't make a difference on how people saw me before, now, or over time. And for years, my body image was a constant reminder of why I was never happier with myself, no matter how much effort I put into changing it. But looking back at myself, I realized that I had created an image I would constantly think of trying to achieve on myself, thus creating this relationship between myself and my body image. Now, you may be thinking, this doesn't make any sense, because relationships are meant to be shared between people and living things, right? However, everything we come into contact with can form a relationship, and for me, my body image was no different from that. The relationship I had with my body image consisted of limiting my meals or simply not eating at all sometimes. The first time I tried to resolve this problem, I tried distracting myself, hoping that I could just forget about it. And so I did. I tried playing various sports all year round, such as volleyball, soccer, tennis, or gymnastics. But regardless of how long or how intensive I was doing these sports, the constant reminder of how I looked in public always blocked me from really enjoying the time I had doing the things I'd already loved. And for years, my body image was a constant problem that I felt the need to solve. In time, I came to realize that what I thought was a solution only reminded me how much I ridiculed myself over my body image, over all the moments I could have enjoyed with friends, family, or simply being on my own as well. That's also when I realized that I needed a more realistic solution to overcoming this. First, I had to address my relationship with my mind and my body. I had always believed that I would never be truly happy with myself unless I looked a certain way, and as such, the way I treated the image of my body was no different from belittling someone in a relationship. I would often blame myself for being the reason I wouldn't participate in social activities, which would come to my second point, to realize that my insecurity is not my own, but many others as well. You may not realize it in the moment, but many others can relate to myself and you as well, which is why there was no reason anyone should feel alone in this situation, and especially during this pandemic while we are all constantly online looking through social media. Third, realize that my body is more than just a reflection from the mirror, but that it helps me see, move, and breathe every day. But most importantly, how much respect it deserves. By respect, I mean it toward the same way I value my friends and family. Even though there may be some times where I disliked their behavior, I know that in the end, I still have to treat them with the utmost respect and will be grateful for them no matter what. And if I can choose to treat my friends and family that way, then why can't I treat my body that way? Of course, it's never going to be that easy because I'll know I'll always look back at the mirror and never be completely satisfied with what's reflected back. But I try to keep in mind that I have to be grateful every day for what my body does for me. And although this may not work all the time, the few times that it does, it really does impact me for what it's worth. These are just some examples that I try to address my struggle through a form of relationships, and it helps me better understand my struggles as well as to seek healthier changes. However, it's important to note that everyone's situation may be different, and if you know you're struggling to love yourself, remember to take a pause and realize everything that your body does for you. And if you know it's gotten to a point where you may be struggling with serious cases such as an eating disorder, you should always seek professional help and reach out to people you feel most comfortable around. I'm still healing and trying to mend my relationship with myself and my body, and I know it'll take much more than the time I can even specify to you right now. But as time progresses, I have full faith that I will continue to grow stronger with my relationship with my body and learn to accept the fact that as time progressed, I had grown from an unhealthy relationship and now growing out of it. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.